Charles Castronovo, my friend Charlie, last time I saw Charlie, he was in London on stage performing Bohème. I was conducting that Bohème, can be seen now on the site of Covent Garden. It's a beautiful production with Sonia Yoncheva and a great cast, a Jones production, wonderful production, always a pleasure to be in Covent Garden. It was great to work with Charlie, who did a fantastic job with that role. Charlie was just in Paris. I'm in Paris. We missed each other. And unfortunately, the Carmen he was supposed to sing at the Bastille with the Opéra National de Paris has been cancelled because of the pandemic and this terrible virus. The good side of this, I suppose, is that he's back in Berlin with his wife and his kids. How are you doing, Charlie?
Maestro, nice to see you. Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, you know, a little bit of sweet and sour right now. You know, too bad that our Carmen was canceled. We were in the middle of a dress orchestra rehearsal with costumes and everything, and halfway in the pause, they announced that the theaters would be staying closed. So we didn't even finish the opera that night. But on the other hand, I'm not missing Christmas. I'm home with my family, and you know, we're having a good time already. So I'm already running errands and getting Christmas things ready. So it's you know, pros and cons like everything. Yeah,
it is tough. Our Bohème was last January, February, if I recall correctly. So it was just before the pandemic.
Exactly.
How much have you done since the beginning of the pandemic?
Yeah, well, actually, right after our Bohèmes, I went to Munich to do a new production of Masnadieri, and which was a first time for me. It was very, very beautiful and interesting. You know, earlier Verdi opera, great role, really nice production, and we rehearsed a good 6 weeks. And then we did the premiere, and that was it. Then everything was on complete shutdown. We had heard little rumors, but we did get the premiere in, at least. But since that time, which I believe was, I don't remember, the last days of February, I don't remember exactly, or maybe the beginning of March, yeah. Since then, it was really dry, kind of a really low period. Eventually, we did a couple concerts here and there, but it was, you know, kind of fundraiser things. I went back to London to do, you know, the fundraiser for the opera, sang a couple duets and an aria, and we did a couple small concerts here in Berlin with a number of people. Actually, Sonia actually put together through her sponsorship with what's that famous watch again? Oh yeah, Rolex. And they put on a concert for artists, you know, obviously to help financially, because so many of us, as you know, were out of work unexpectedly, but also just to give a chance for people to do what they're supposed to do. So we did a couple things like that. And during a short period, just about 2 months ago, when Germany was slightly open again, I got a call the same day, and they said, "Can you sing Pearl Fishers tonight?" Which I hadn't sung in about 6-7 years at the Staatsoper in Berlin. So I did it with the score on the side of the stage, the first show, but I ended up doing 3 shows in total. So I memorized. They said, "Can you do it on stage the next 2?" So I somehow got it back into my voice and in my memory, and I did.
They had souffleur for you?
They did. But I have to say, I did the role several times in, you know, several years ago. So it came back quick, but it was more about, you know, the height of the aria and staying really in that voix mix area.
Because Pesce de Perle, you know, you have the mezza di voce, you have to go into colors that are not obvious to the voice, especially if you're not sung in a long time. And if you
I think what happened was, you know, I tapped into all my rock and roll days when I can use that voix mix very well, and it came back relatively quick. So by the third show, it was pretty good shape. Yeah.
And then Paris with the hope of a new show.
Well, I was supposed to make my La Scala debut in October with Bohème also. I was literally with my suitcases at the door, ready to leave to the airport when they called and said, okay, they're closing it. So that was canceled. And then Paris was the big hope, because they said, we're planning on continuing. And we rehearsed for about 2 weeks. You know, we should open in 2 days from now, but unfortunately we got that.
It was actually a surprise when the French government reinforced some of the measures
Yeah.
No comment, but it was a surprise that theaters and concert hall and opera houses would be closed, and it is a disappointment. I mean, everybody's trying to do his share to go through this pandemic. It's for the word of the arts. It seems sometimes very unfair that we would be asked not to perform when you see. I mean, for instance, in Paris, the metro is totally packed with people, where actually you could have a little more of the cars or a little more frequent metros and some of the shops and the things. What is essential? What is not essential? Culture is essential. It's fundamental. It's food for the soul. And of course, if you don't have a body, you don't have a soul. At least on this earth, unless you believe in ghosts. And so we need to protect the bodies. But that's why, and I don't know if you know that the Tenors opera is going to have a spring season. We are planning a spring season. We are planning it very carefully.
Right.
We are implementing a lot of measures, testing for the artist. The pit will be the big pit, the so-called Wagner pit. We will have reduced orchestration, no intermission. We are reducing the shows to 90 minutes. But we are offering shows for the.
It's so great because it's such a hope, not only for the audience but for the artists too. And from the knowledge that I've gathered so far, there are very few infections in the theater. When I was here in Berlin when we were performing, absolutely careful. I mean, everyone's spread out, everyone's in masks. We were getting tests in Paris. We were getting 2 tests a week. For the whole opera company, not just the singers, but we're talking about every single person in the crew, the technicians, everyone. So we felt safe. We were singing in masks. They said we would sing in masks until the performance, which is a little bit awkward, a little bit uncomfortable.
Right.
But worth it, to make sure that we were going to perform.
Better than being dark. Exactly.
Exactly. So and I think you're right.
And in Dallas also we will have only the third of the house. It may be even less. Right. I mean, then something like 600 people in our house only.
Exactly.
But that's the smart thing to do. I believe it's right, and we're doing our share to provide the Dallas community with world-class opera in a safe way. Anyway, Charlie, you are American of Sicilian origin.
Yes. My father's from Sicily, yes.
Your father is from Sicily. I read somewhere your mother is from South America?
From Ecuador, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. But I was the first generation born in the States. They both came over separately, obviously, but around 16 years old. So, doing the whole American dream thing, coming to America, starting over there, working and everything.
Were they speaking Italian to you, or were they speaking English?
It was, I would say that maybe I think in my generation, it was this, or in my parents' generation, was this mentality, which is a little bit different from nowadays, where they really tried to integrate and be American. Right. So we used it, but not, consistently every day, all the time. Actually, we ended up using more Spanish because in LA, I grew up in LA, even though I was born in New York. It's more possible to use the Spanish there. So, but I grew up with a little bit of everything. Also, my father speaks Sicilian with his family, so it's almost like a different language half of the time.
It's a beautiful language, actually.
Yeah, it is beautiful. Yeah.
How is your? I mean, your singing Italian is impeccable. We usually speak together English. How is your Italian actually? Now?
It's not bad. I mean, I'm making sometimes silly mistakes because I only learned from some family, half Sicilian, half family, and then of course colleagues, and just obviously looking at scores all the time. I kind of through osmosis learned it that way. So I'll make some mistakes, or I'll use some words that are, let's say, a bit operatic, where I can't remember. So it sounds a bit grand sometimes, but yeah.
Have you visited Sicily?
Yes, yeah. I haven't been there for a while now, but yeah, I've been many times, and I just, there the only problem is you have to be careful not to put on too many kilos from eating,
That's true. Yeah. What was your first contact with music?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about the big picture of music, I mean, my father tells many stories about when I was quite young at a party. They would always my parents would have a party trick, and that would be if they would put on certain kinds of music, maybe like Bee Gees or Michael Jackson, I would always dance for everyone. So I apparently had some kind of part of my personality that liked to perform. So that was already there. And they said I could dance well. I wasn't just messing around. I was like dancing well. After that, I think maybe by the time I was in 5th, 6th grade, I was all the time joining drama class and doing the plays and things like that. And then when I was about 14 years old, I discovered Led Zeppelin and the Beatles. And I'm a big classic rock fan. So I found an old guitar that I bought from someone, and I basically glued it to my hands for the next few years, and just learning how to play guitar. Taught myself, learned from anyone who knew more chords than me, and whatever. And when that started happening, I just started singing at the same time, and I found that I could, mimic, Paul McCartney or something pretty easy. And I had a good ear, the harmony and everything. And then when I was about 16 years old, during lunchtime at school, the choir teacher walked by and heard me playing my guitar with a friend, and she said, why don't you join choir? And I said, no, I'm going to be a rock star, But she was a very clever lady, and she said, hey, listen, in choir there are like 60 girls and like 10 boys. So, I quickly did the math in my brain, and I thought, well, that's kind of a cool place to be.
You would get sued for making such a pitch nowadays,
Right, yeah. Nowadays it would be totally different. But she was clever enough that, how to get a 16-year-old boy into choir. So, but once I was there, I loved it, singing the harmony. And I knew I was a tenor because I would always sing the top harmony of the Beatles songs, So once I was there, she gave me solos. Once I heard classical music, I just fell in love immediately. And then when I heard opera, which was the first thing I happened to hear, a friend of mine in choir, his father is from Bologna, who was a big opera fan. My parents are not musicians at all. But he lent me a CD of Tenors. And the first track I listened to happened to be the entrance of Otello with Placido Domingo. So when I heard that, I said, "Oh, I want to do that. I want to do that." So dramatic. So it was kind of like the rock and roll of classical music. A lot of passion. So, and that was it. After that, I knew I wanted to be an opera singer, even from about 16 years old. I said that was my main goal.
So you studied. You were part of the Merlot program. You were part of the Linneman program. But how did you get there? I mean, what was the step between the school choir to really studying professionally voice?
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, I wasn't the greatest student in school. I cared about music and art, not so much about the other subjects. But I did graduate, but I thought, well, I'm probably not going to get into any good school. But I made some auditions at some state schools. Where did I go? Cal State Los Angeles, Northridge, and Cal State Fullerton, all in the LA area.
Great school.
Yeah, they were all good. But at the time, I thought, should I go to Juilliard? But I never tried. So I went there, and I actually got a little scholarship at Cal State Fullerton. And the reason why I chose it was because my voice teacher there was also a tenor. So I wanted to study with the tenor. And then, again, all honesty out, I only stayed a year and a half at school. I hated school because I wanted to be on stage, and I didn't want to be in class. So my teacher said, well, school's not for everyone. You have to learn all of those things about style, about the history, about the language on your own then. You'll have to do it on your own. So basically, I buried myself in scores and recordings. And so I had my favorite tenors at that time, but I knew at that time that if I listened to one, you start trying to take on the characteristics of that tenor. So when I fell in love with the role of, let's say, Faust, I listened to every recording possible I could find. And when you listen to 40 tenors sing Faust, you can only take the things that you like, and you can't copy anyone. So that was my main study. And then I auditioned at Los Angeles Opera, and they started giving me small roles right away. So I was on stage at 22, 23, doing small roles. Yeah, and that's where I got my big experience.
Wow. And then you moved to the Young Artists program, the Merlot in San Francisco, and then
I did one summer there, which was great, and we did Zauberflöte. I sang Tamino. And then after that I thought, okay, I guess I need to start going for it. and I was still in LA. I did an audition there for Jonathan Friend from the Metropolitan Opera, who happened to be coming to LA to see a show. It was Falstaff, and I was singing Bardolfo. So I was working on my acting skills too. It was very fun. So I did an audition while he was there, and he offered me Beppe in Pagliacci at the Met, which is a really good young role, you know. I mean, a great aria and everything.
It's the Met. You're opening your throat on the stage of the Met. Come on.
Exactly. It happened to be on the opening night of the '99 season, and it was with Placido Domingo singing Canio. So for me, it was great. So I accepted that, of course. But they asked me. They said, "Would you come to New York and also sing for some of the other people at the Met here?" And when I did that, they offered me the Young Artist program also. And to be honest with you, I was just one step away from saying no, because I thought, well, I just spent 2 years in LA singing small roles, you know, but I was very young. I was about 25, and I said, I need some more time to stew, you know, to kind of, so I spent 2 years there. It should have been 3 years, but after 2 years, I felt like it was enough and I needed to get out there. So I left. They were a bit mad, but in the end, it was better for me because I went out and started singing major roles in smaller houses at first. You know, I was in Boston. I was in Philadelphia. In Pittsburgh and you know, Oregon, Portland, and everything. So that's how I started getting my experience. And then I went to Germany and auditioned, and I started working in Europe then too.
Right. Well, and you have a stellar career, and you have sung again at the Met, you have sung at the Staatsoper, you've sung in Covent Garden very often. I mean, basically all the major houses in the world. Yeah. When I'm listening to you, it seems like you are very conscious of your voice. You have built your own technique, but would you attribute your technique also to some specific teachers? I mean, what's your connection with teachers in general?
Thank you. Yeah, I've only had 2 teachers my whole life. My first one was at Cal State Fullerton, Mark Goodrich, who's a wonderful teacher. He's still there. He gave me what I think was a really solid base technique that always kept me in a good spot that was healthy. You know, it was a healthy technique. So I did so much. I sang so much Mozart and other bel canto things, and I was, you know, secure. I mean, of course, you know, sometimes you're not so great with this, you're not so great with that, but you learn. It was a kind of technique that would keep me in a good enough place so I can have a bad night, learn from it, and improve, you know, instead of just going down the wrong path. But at a certain point, actually, to be honest with you, this is absolute full disclosure. I sang one time in Dallas, and that was Romeo and Juliet. It was my debut there, and it was quite a while ago now. But when I reached that point in my development, let's say, my body was telling me, "Oh, you're ready for bigger roles. You know, things that are more expansive, not just the Mozarts and some of these things." But I didn't know exactly. My body was trying to tell me that I have more there, but I wasn't sure. I had some gut feelings about how to access it, but I didn't know. So I spoke with my original teacher, Mark Goodrich, and he said, well, listen, try to also see someone else. Maybe you can gain something else. Wow, so I met Arthur Levy, who's in New York, who's someone that was suggested to me by my manager, Alan Green. And he said, listen, I think you might be a good match. And with Arthur, he just kind of confirmed what I was thinking, that I need to use the whole body when I sing, that it's a deeper, fuller sound than I think. Because I was singing kind of from here up for the beginning of my career, which was fine, but when you sing Romeo and Faust, you have to access some other bits, you know. So he kind of reconfirmed what I was already thinking, and he allowed me to kind of trust it. And of course, when we first started working, we went a little bit too far. I sang, after we worked together for 2 months, I think one of the first things I sang was Zauberflöte in Chicago. And I started like, this bird. It was like, you know, I trying to be this huge thing. So I said, okay, maybe that's a little bit too far. Let's bring it back a little bit, you know, and find the balance. But I think what's been happening, it's allowing my voice to grow. And since then, you know, it's developed a lot. I would say in the last 6-7 years, I didn't think I would get where I am now with the kind of repertoire and let's say the comfortability is that a word? The comfortableness in this repertoire that I have now. Yeah.
I will settle for comfort, maybe, but I'm just for
That's perfect.
I mean, you have a very natural voice. Your voice doesn't sound fabricated, which is so wonderful when you are on the podium. You know, it's a very natural ring and doesn't feel like you're pushing or darkening or working only on the mask. All those things seems to be totally integrated. I just was listening to our Bohème in Covent Garden, and for me, it's always very hard to listen to anything I've done. I usually need, a few months, if not a few years, to know how I feel about it. Yes. How are you with this? Are you yourself?
I'm so bad, so bad. I mean, it's very rare when I'll get something back soon and think, wow, that was pretty damn good. No, usually it's the opposite, where I find every flaw and think, oh my God, someone soon is going to figure out that I have no idea what I'm doing here. Like, this kind of feeling like, no. Of course, for other people, perhaps that's not the sensation, but for myself, this is actually an interesting subject, which is not too many people talk about this inner struggle that we have, each artist, whether you're a conductor, whether you're a singer, there's a internal battle that happens all the time, and I, growing up now quite a bit, I'm not as young as I used to be, but I remember starting with many, many talented people, and I can honestly say many people with much more natural talent than me. I mean, just nature, like nature, you know what I'm saying? Nature on their side, like, wow. And, some of those people, I would even venture to say a lot of those people are not around anymore. And you think, how is that possible? And then I started to realize after time that, this career, for a singer's point of view, is like 40% voice. And all the rest is mental stability, how you work with people, how you get through those hard times. And many of us cannot, and that's why some of those people with so much talent still don't make it through. It's a tricky subject, but it's very true.
Right. We have seen so many people with amazing voices. And I remember actually presenting to one of my Italian agents who was of Brazilian origins and a young tenor that was in a prestigious school and telling him, this is the voice of God. I mean, you need to do something for him. He says, yeah, he's the voice of God. You're right. But I talked to him 10 minutes. I know it's never going to work. He doesn't have it here. Yeah. And I was very mad at him, and that guy never had a career.
Yeah.
And you have other people who have, sound you don't necessarily want to hear, and they find the niche, and they are resilient, and they work, and they fix their technique, they find some resonance somewhere, and all of a sudden, these people are more successful than anybody else. When you're critical of yourself, is it the musicality? Is it the sheer sound? Is it the color? Is it the language that you are getting after? Is it all together? Where does it start?
In this case, the answer to this is that's when I become really a tenor, because I'm not so tenorish in many ways, as you know me.
You're not.
I don't freak out or make a big fuss. I'm really casual with those things. But I turn into a tenor when I start hearing my own sound, and think, in my mind, I've analyzed myself enough to figure it out. In my mind, I don't hear, okay, it should sound like this, Corelli, or it should sound like Bierling. No, I don't hear that. I hear my own voice, but in the most optimal form ever. And when I don't achieve what I can imagine in my mind to do, then that's when I get really tough on myself, So it's really about the sound, It's not about the musicality. I mean, there's sometimes where I think, well, I could have maybe phrased that better, but that part doesn't bother me too much. That's in the mood or in the moment. But the sound,
The sound depends on, of course, a lot of psychological, mental projection, which is what you're talking about. But even before we go into that, it depends how you listen. It depends if you're listening on your computer, on your iPhone, with your headphones. I mean, the kind of amplification you have. So, your wife is a singer. When you listen to her recording, do you recognize her voice? I mean, or
Yeah, I definitely recognize it, but she never sounds bad to me. There you go. So,
right? Okay.
and myself, I think, oh my gosh, sometimes like woohoo, but I guess that's part of the struggle, I mean, you have to get through those
Right,
times.
right. So I went through an experience the other day. I just did a lot of recordings in Prague because of the pandemic. You can't have an audience, but you can still record. And I was getting the first edits, and I was like you, very critical. Although I was maybe less critical than usual on that one. But I had a list of the equivalent of 5 pages. By the way, when people say 5 pages nowadays in an email, I don't know what it means, because
Right,
what but it was a lot of edits. And, I was thinking, oh God, I know the guy is excellent, but this is a lot of, and then I listened to something else. I'm making programs and actually in my bath. And automatically the iPhone was even on the iPhone goes to the same piece, 4-Jack-8. And I said, that's the way it should sound.
Right.
Thinking it's one of the recording I have with Matachik or Karian or whatever.
Exactly.
And I said, God, why didn't I do it that way? And then, I want to know who it is. And at the risk of drowning my iPhone, I see this was the edit of our report.
There you go.
So the way it was framed, for me, mentally, psychologically, neurotically, made me listen to it totally differently. It's like one of those Rorschach tests, or where you have several images you can see,
Right.
and according to where your mind is, you are going to see
Absolutely.
something different. A lot of people I know will somehow build their own technique and have, like you do, an extreme awareness of what they do technically, because somehow they maybe had several teachers and they had to figure it out mostly on their own, which is probably true of all people who are extremists.
For sure, yeah.
What they do. Does that make you a teacher? Are you teaching? Are you giving classes? And how do you work with singers?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting question and observation, because I noticed that because I was very happy. I mean, it's very flattering when you said you sound like a natural singer, which I think my basis is, let's say, natural singing. But
your speaking voice is a tenor speaking voice, right?
Yes.
Now,
Yes, exactly.
And so it probably was always like that. You're not trying to be a tenor.
Exactly. Exactly. But when I was thinking to myself, I said, wow, like, I was never one of those, young tenors who woke up and could sing high C's all morning. I mean, there are people who are just like, they just no problem. I never had that. So I kind of had to build every note and, still adjusting and fixing and doing this and that. But because...
what was the note that would come naturally to you? An F sharp, a G natural?
Yeah, what's funny, I was able to figure out my passaggio quite early, which, funny enough, I mean, even if you're a tenor and you have to sing high notes often, I mean, the majority of the time you're in your passaggio. So we've all heard those tenors who have incredible high notes, and the passaggio down, it sounds like I don't know what, So I think my Mozart and some of the earlier bel canto that I did helped me a lot with that, because you don't have that many high notes in Mozart, but you have a lot of passaggio. So I figured it out early, but I had to build all the top notes because it didn't come so natural to me. So, but now... For example, when you age and you go through different parts of your life and you're changing repertoire, now if I have a little issue, I think, okay, wow, that didn't work well or that didn't go well. I know how to calmly sit down, figure out with myself how to fix the problem, how to find a solution. And there are other singers who are complete naturals.
Right.
So if they do have any crisis, then they're kind of at a loss to how to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? So because of that, which leads into the other part of your question, I do feel a lot of a sense of satisfaction when I do teach. I've been asked many times by young tenors, "Hey, would you listen to me? Maybe can you give me a lesson?" And I say, "Hey, listen, I'm not officially a teacher yet, but let's go as colleagues and friends. I have a good ear, and I would love to listen to you, and maybe I can give you some pointers and some ideas," which turned into a little bit more of, let's say, a little bit more teaching. I've done a few online, I've done a few in person, and I always get a lot of satisfaction from it. So I do think that I will be able to do that later.
Do you enjoy it?
I do enjoy it. I do enjoy it. Yeah, I do enjoy it. I think I never would be so boastful to say that I could teach anyone, but tenors for sure. I think I understand how it works, and I think I could help tenors. You know what I mean?
Do you get advice from your wife? Do you give her advice? Oh, that's a no.
No. We help each other a lot. I mean, half of the time we don't agree, but that's normal. So she. Let's just put it this way: her favorite tenor is Pavarotti. You know what I mean? And for her, Pavarotti means sunshine, and everything is, just not that it's nasal, but just nice and yeah. And my tendency is to be, much more deep, full, rounded sound. So she's usually telling me, you need more nyah. And you know what? Sometimes she's absolutely right. But, on the other hand, it's finding that middle thing. And I give her, the same thing. Usually I'm the opposite because she has such good cheekbones. She's all the time singing like this. And I said, you just need to round it out just a bit, So, but I seek information and knowledge from other tenors very often. Because I always find, even in, let's say, voices that I'm not crazy about, I always find at least one thing that makes me think, man, that's pretty damn good. How do they do that? I would like to know. Even if I don't like their voice that much in general,
Okay, so let's go into a little details about this. Who are the tenors you have admired?
Yes. Okay, well, if we go in the old days, I mean, I'm the biggest fan of the kind of tenors that I don't normally sing like, meaning my approach. So, for example, I adore Di Stefano. So, but I never leave my voice open. I always cover. I mean, unless there's a very specific, I would never leave an F sharp open unless it's very specific, dramatic thing I need to do. So, let alone a G or higher, like Di Stefano would do. But I adore him as a singer. Like I adore him, and that leads right into Carreras, who, especially early Carreras, with so much gift, nature, the gift of nature. But he sang very similar to Di Stefano, in a more dangerous manner. Let's just say, from
a lot of risks.
Yeah, a lot of risk. But for me, it's so emotionally rewarding that, when I'm feeling down and I feel like, I'm not doing great or whatever it is, when I listen to Carreras, especially early Carreras, he reminds me of why I wanted to sing in the first place, if that makes sense,
Well, it makes total sense. Have you met him? Have you worked with him?
I did meet him. As far as I understand, he doesn't really work with people. But I have met him a couple times. He was very kind and a very nice person. I've had the chance to work with a few greats just by pure luck. When I was in the Met program, Pavarotti came to sing Tosca there, and I snuck my way into the rehearsal, and I was able to meet him. And someone said, "Hey, Luciano, this is Charlie. He's a young tenor in the program," and he just said to me, "Oh, nice to meet you. Do you want to sing for me?" This was his first phrase. And I said, and 3 days later, I was in his apartment, right off of Central Park, I guess, south, it was one of on the ends, not on the sides, but, and we worked for 30 minutes and it was incredible. I mean, I'll never forget. I remember every detail from the point when I walked in, he was on the sofa with his feet on the coffee table, eating a bowl of ice cream. I mean, this is a perfect memory. And he was like, and it was just incredible.
When, the pressure we are under and the kind of work, I find it remarkable that someone like him at the stage would take the time to do this.
I was shocked.
What's in it for him except, the joy of helping someone.
Exactly. Well, I'm telling you, this was literally the second phrase he said. Nice to meet you. Do you want to sing for me? And 3 days later, I was in his apartment.
What did he tell you? I mean, what's you would have one idea that beside the ice cream.
Yes, exactly.
And I hope you're not using the ice cream technique too much.
Exactly, not too much. Yeah, nowadays you can't do it too much. No, but I would say the most interesting thing he said to me He said, listen, high notes are very important. The whole voice is important. He said, but for the tenor, you must know how to deal with your passaggio. He said, so for example, okay, forget about F or F sharp. We know, he says, you have a good transition, you cover well. He said, but E natural. He says, this is where it's very important. So it needs to be open. You need to have a nice, full, open throat, but it can't be spread. So he made me sing from the Verdi Requiem, Hostias, and I understood right away what he was trying to find from me: an open, free sound, not covered, not spread, not wide, but in that middle section somewhere where you can be free. And we did that for 10 minutes just on this type of thing, And so that seemed to me to be the most important point he was making, And
that stayed with you.
Yeah, that really stayed with me because he said if that part is healthy, clean, you'll get up, you'll get down, you'll go all to the extremes. But that section is where you're going to be most of the time. So it was important.
So where do you want to go vocally and in terms of roles?
Yeah.
And where do you think you will go and how you negotiate that?
Yeah, well, for me, sometimes my wife Katarina will say, you shouldn't tell people too much information about yourself because for her, you know what I'm saying. No, but you know what I mean. This is a type of thinking where you leave a bit of mystery, so you don't tell them about weaknesses or whatever. But my nature is to say something.
I strongly disagree with this. You can't fall apart, but I think honesty will get you a long way.
I think so.
And the first honesty is to yourself, but you are a very established artist. You're very strong in what you do, and so people are going to be excited if they know. Well, Charlie wants to sing Othello in 2 years. They might question it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, totally. So, but I guess what I mean by that is that. So I've been on a steady. Let's say, line of experimentation, let's say in the last even 10 years. So I'm in general, I'm a bit careful with myself. Like, for example, my manager and I, Alan Green, we've worked together a long time. And we have a great system how we work. He thinks usually I can do something always maybe 2 seasons before I think I can do it.
Right.
So, and we meet in the middle sometimes. He says, I think you can do it right now. And I said, you know what? I'm going to wait a couple more years. He always respected it, and we've gotten well this way. But there's been a couple times he said, I think you can do this. And I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I did my first Lucia. It was quite a long time ago now. And you know what? It was not bad. It wasn't bad. But the end was a killer. It's hard now. But anyway, I got to the end. I said, okay, well, you know what? I did it. It was pretty good. But I'm putting this away now for 2, and I didn't do it again for almost 4 years. He respected that, and I let myself grow. And the next time I did it, it was a lot better, and it was more secure, and I felt more secure. So that's happened several times, that kind of thing. I never did anything that was way out there. I remember when I did my first Don José, some people said, wow, you do Don José? Are you sure? But I have to tell you, Don José seemed easy.
Right. Well, there are so many Don José anyway. So
yes, of course, and of course, I'm kind of a scholar. I'm a little bit of an opera nerd, and I know many roles can be done by different types. And I've heard very heavy tenors do Don José, and they eat shit. Excuse my language. They are horrible in the first act. In this Micaela duet, and it's very difficult. It's more lyric, with a few big moments. So I always try to find this balance, and now I think I'm in this place where I can do big full lyric roles, maybe with a hint of spinto stuff to it, something where you need elegance, you need lyricism with a few moments of drama. If I had to do it all night of drama, I don't think I would be ready for that yet. But when it's mixed up a bit, I think that's my zone right now. So, for example, I should have done first time now Don Carlo. Now, Don Carlo was a 3-year-long debate in my mind. But eventually, as I worked on it more and more, I realized this is mostly lyric with a couple big moments. Orchestration can be a bit thick sometimes, but not thicker than some of the other things I've done, depending on where you do it. So it got down to where am I going to do it? Who's in the cast? Who's conducting? And how much preparation do I have that it's really in my voice in a healthy way and not rushed?
Mm-hmm.
With all those things in a good spot, then I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Will it be perfect the first time? I seriously doubt it. But I know that I won't hurt myself and it'll help me grow. You got to stretch it just a bit to grow sometimes without hurting yourself. That's been my method and it's been pretty good for me. The next big thing's coming. Well, I will do a Don Carlo. I will do, for example, Ballo in a couple years. But I think Ballo is a typical step in the, let's say, more full lyric Verdi. Couple big moments, a lot of lyricism. You know, it's not a heavy role. It's like I don't know. It's like the Duca on steroids. You know what I mean? It's bel canto with meat. You know what I mean? And I think I feel very comfortable in this now. And I was happy because I haven't sung Don José in a while. Now that I was rehearsing and practicing, I thought, okay, now my new approach is a bit more focus and not just the depth, where I was thinking of that more often, let's say 2 years ago. So, and I found that now it even fits even better. So, you know what I mean? So it's a constant kind of growth, a little stretch here and then come back, a little stretch there, then come back. And then, so, you know, you take 3 steps forward, maybe you take a step back, and then you take another couple steps. And it's been serving me well. So I stay in basically good shape.
Right. You are in a fantastic shape, actually. You were saying dramatic in the sense larger vocally and so on. But let's talk about dramatic in the sense of stage presence and so on. How much do you enjoy the acting part of the job?
Yeah, I would say that nowadays, the last few years, I enjoy it 50-50 now. You know, before I was more focused on the music, but now I don't sing as well if I'm not acting well. You know what I'm saying? So when I have something very engaging to do on stage, I always sing better. You know, so I'm that type of singer that rather not do a concert. I mean, of course, I love concerts, but you know, I prefer to act on stage in a costume with my colleagues. I always feel better than just standing in a nice suit and singing. You know what I mean?
Well, actually, when you do things in concert, you need to bring that dramatic presence even more. You need to be aware of the role. You need to project that. Stage. Charlie, it's been fantastic talking to you.
Maestro.
You are an amazing colleague. I wish you and your family, happy holidays, and let's hope we see each other very soon.
Yes, I really hope so. I can't wait for this stuff to be over and get back to what we love the most, you know, making music together. And you know, I'm just hoping everyone, especially all of our colleagues, you know, will make it through. And, you know, we have to support each other in this time. So
I think we're seeing the end of this. Is it a matter of 1 month, 2 months, 6 months? Let's hope it's the shortest.
I hope so. Yeah, and I hope we perform together soon, too, because that was a great time.
We're going to organize that. In the meantime, you can see our Bohème on the site of the Covent Garden. And please.
And we won't tell you what parts we didn't like of ourselves. We'll just exactly.
Close to everywhere.
It's just here, Take care, Maestro. Thanks so much. Thank you.